let's just start with sort of like if I could quickly summarize the starting point of this, it would really be that I think so much of this year is about like simplification and individuation. So what I mean by that is I feel like the old days of being able to do like a ton of things moderately well are gone, because we need to stand out more. And what it's taking to stand out is also more. And so that's why I think so much of this is really about and going to be about like, how are you simplifying what's happening in your business so you can do it really well? I feel like there was, I think in 2023, maybe it was 2024, it doesn't matter. But I went through this big phase of being like less better, less better. I was like so on that with my team. I'm like, I want everything to be, it must have been 2023, I think, because it was when Megan was still with me. And I remember I was just so hyper fixated on this idea of less better. Like, how can we do less but do it better? How can we do less but do it better? And I think that's kind of like coming back around. Hey, Allison. For people because we need, I think, when we're putting stuff out now, to be doing a pretty good job of it in order to stand out. But we can't be doing a really good job of all the things. I also think what's so interesting about our industry is so much of our industry has kind of like grown up in a sense. Like I think so many of us started in this industry, excuse me, when we hadn't yet had kids. And I'm talking from a decade in, and I'm not saying everybody did this, but I'm just saying like a lot of what I've seen is like so many of us started when we like didn't have kids and stuff. And now we have more things, responsibilities. I think a lot of us, have aging parents we're taking care of. Like there's so many pieces of this. I think that has come together. And then on top of that, like just like the bigger industry progression of like where social has gone, how much more of a game, so to speak, it is to create attention and stand out. And I think that leads back to this idea of less, better, and simplification. Yeah. Elisa said simplify was definitely in my application. Yes, like I think not only is it what we need to do to get better results right now, but I think it's what so many of us are craving too. So I thought that was like interesting too. It was really like a matchup there. Sometimes it's like, hey, there's a lot of things people need to be doing, but like nobody's saying they want to do that, which there is one thing that we'll get into with that. But this was like a good match. Like a lot of people were saying they wanted it, and equally, like I really think that's like what is going to be required, which leads to that kind of like individuation part. Like the more you simplify, the more you have a chance to like stand out in what you're doing. And I think that part's really important too. We know that the market is way more full, like more crowded, like I also think what's interesting is I talked in my business rules about this guy, this little brick guy. And like I've been talking in my goals about brain health, and so many people have been like, same, same, same. Like people are wanting to be on social less by a lot, which means we have less time to capture their attention, versus like 2020 when it was just like, I was like, all people were doing, there was more attention to be grabbed. You know what I mean? So I think that we really need to work at how are we truly standing out? And like, it's just less of this like, oh, I just copy someone else's strategy or whatever. And it's like, I have to go so deep on like what makes me particularly interesting or qualified to talk about this, right? I'll just give like one silly example of this because I think sometimes it's like, well, what do you mean by that? Wait, let me see what's going on. I've tried to do a more better a bunch of times and it just keeps freaking not working. Jess, I don't know if I fully believe that none of it's working, but I hear you. I definitely think it's a more challenging landscape for sure. But so one small example is I'm doing this series on Instagram right now and testing it. And I'm doing like 10 ways that I run a seven-figure business with a husband with a super demanding career and as a mom. And the reason I'm doing that is because I've really been thinking about like, okay, well, what's like a unique contribution I can make to the conversation in our industry that I don't see happening as much. And so one of the things I'm like, I don't, that was a nice way of saying thank you. Always here for you. One of the things I don't personally see as much that I would like to see more of in our industry is kind of like this conversation about like what happens when there are two big careers in a family. Like I think that um like a lot of the people that I've seen like doing things in our industry, like their husband has like left his career or works in their business or different things like that. And so I'm like, okay, this is a unique thing. Do I think that that's going to get a ton of reach or virality? I don't, because I think that situation is pretty like hyper specific and unique, but it's also like a way that I can stand out in that conversation. So this stuff isn't always going to be the thing that like, you know, skyrockets your reach, but it is going to pull in more of the right people. And they're going to be like, if I have limited attention that I want to spend, maybe this is a person I want to spend it with, right? Um, Christina said people want to follow less people, but be deeper with the few that they spend their time with. Right, totally, right? So for me, the point in doing that is being like, well, maybe those people will want to go deeper with me if they're spending time with fewer people, right? Tara said saw and love the series. Thank you. Hey Michelle. Hey Luz. Good to see you guys. So simplification, individuation, like let's hold those as themes, but we're gonna get into details. Um, I think one of the biggest is a lot of people are wanting to pivot and reinvent right now. And I have a lot to say on this. I think obviously this more challenging season in our industry has led a lot of people to like rethink like what do I want to be doing, what's working, what's not, how do I make this sustainable, all of these things. But I will say I think a lot of people are not thinking about this in the best way, so we'll talk about that. Rachel said I love this series. This was such a challenge for me when my boys were toddlers and my husband traveled 4 to 5 times a week. It was so hard to feel like I deserve my own career as the default caregiver. Yes, thank you for saying that, Rachel. I same. I have a 3 year old. Like it's a thing. Elisa said lately I've been thinking a lot about the purpose of virality and how we became so obsessed with it when it's much more beautiful to call in the right people, even if it's much less. Totally. And especially for a lot of us, like with our business models, it's like I just don't need that to get the results I want. You know, we talked about that last week too. It's like, or maybe I talked about it on a client lesson, but it's like, what do you need in your business to get the results you want? Like a lot of us don't need virality. We need someone that really like values our opinion and wants to pay attention there, you know? Um, so with the pivot and reinvention thing, what I noticed as like a theme in the applications, and I'm not saying this is right or wrong for anybody, but it definitely is like I think people are over fixating on it. A lot of people are trying to do the like pivot reinvention thing through their offers. There was a ton of conversation around that in the application. So many people are rethinking offers. And while that could be true for some businesses, and I definitely think some people are doing that in a really aligned way where they're just like, hey, this offer serves me better and is more of what I want to be doing. I also think sometimes that just feels like the easiest thing for people to fix. Um, like it's much easier to like dream up a new offer and like redo a sales page and almost like trick yourself in this, and not in the good Delulu way, but in kind of like the bad Delulu way, kind of trick yourself that like if you just can perfect this new offering, like everything else will be easier or better. And like that is not what I think is most of the issue right now. Are you just calling me out now? I love you, Lisa. I can tell you this was not just yours, this was like a very big theme. Like that's why I'm leading with it. But yes, also calling you. Um, Kidding. But it just sort of is easier, I think, to romanticize the other part of it. It's like, oh, this new offer will dot dot dot. And it's like if you aren't in a place where you already feel like you know your message really well, you know your audience super well, you're really good at getting in front of them, you're good at getting seen by them, you know, you have what Christina would say is like an audience of buyers, like changing your offer is not going to do that much for you. It's actually probably going to frustrate the fuck out of you because like you're going to have just, you know, put all this time, energy, and effort into creating a new thing, but you're still not going to have the people there that are demanding that thing, that are ready for that thing, right? So I think this is something we have to be really careful of getting caught up in right now is this, you know, kind of magical dreamland where like one offer solves every problem. Um, I think for a lot of people, this is not their biggest problem right now. I really do. I think it's because this is what the industry wants to sell us as well. Yeah, yeah, good point. Good market, good content marketing is hard work. Right. That's what we're going to get into too, right? Like I think that the answer for so many people right now is to get really dialed in on messaging and marketing. And that's the answer most people want the least. So everything else sounds more attractive, right? Perfect the offer, change your platform. That was another thing. Like, should I move platforms? Like a lot of people are kind of wanting to be like, not diagnosing the real problem. So when I said earlier, sometimes there's things where it's like, oh, everybody wants simplification and that's what they need. Yes, match. The mismatch is everybody needs more. I'm trying to think of even, I feel like visibility is even like a light word for what I mean, but like more eyes and connection, like deeper connection is the way I would put it. More people need a deeper, stronger connection with their audience. And they're mismatched to that. Like a lot of people are like, and so I'm going to go build a new offer. I'm going to move to a different platform or whatever. Um, so like I do think that mismatches there. We'll get into more details, but I feel like that's important to call out. Hey, Adrian, good to see you. Lucy said, is there a place to drop topic requests for lives? This is making me come up with so many questions, but I don't want to derail the combo. 100% just say topic requests and put them in like that would, I mean, literally, you would just be doing me a favor. Like that is incredibly helpful to me. This, I think I said this at the beginning. I don't know if you were on loose, but this live was somebody messaged me and was like, I'd love to hear like what came up in the applications. And I was like, wait, that's so smart. Thank you for saying that. So anyway, this is like massively helpful to me. Yes, please. So that's the thing. Like, yes, let's pivot. Yes, reinvent. But a lot of that is more like, how can you go deeper on your messaging? How can you figure out like what marketing you really need to do to like get the results you want? And if you're really changing an offer, I would really want to be sure that it's either one, because you deeply, deeply want to, and just like are almost like, I don't even fucking care. Like, this is just what I have to do because I want to so bad. Or because you are like, I directly listen to, deeply connected with my audience, and I know they want something different and I'm meeting that need. If you are not doing it for one of those two reasons, I think that it's maybe because you're caught up in some shiny object stuff in the industry. Yeah, messaging is the foundation, 100%. I think like it always has been, right? Like I'm sure we'd all say that in a sense, but it really is right now. So next one is, I think that a lot of people realize that it's taking more to be successful now. And I don't mean like you can't be by any means. I just mean like everything we talked about, like you got to drill down. Like your messaging better be good, good, right? Like your connection with your audience better be strong, strong, right? Where before, like it could be lukewarm and you could probably still have a decent launch. Like it's not really like that anymore. Um, and so with that, I think people are really in a much deeper inquiry of like what balance looks like for them. And obviously we all use this word like with context. I mean, like what even is balance? But I have not found a good, oh, Jess is here. Maybe we need to ask her for a good replacement. But like the balance that isn't like the cheesy balance, pretending it's all perfectly balanced is what we're after here. But I think people are really in this inquiry about like, what does this mean for me right now? And even people that are doing really, really well in business, I think everybody is like kind of stopping to ask that question. I think also like our world being a shit show makes us go, wait, like my life can't be too. What does this need to look like for it all to work? What does this need to look like to actually be sustainable? Everyone from like somebody that was new in business to somebody that, 5x their growth last year, is trying to figure that out from what I could see from the application. Sorry, Jess, I didn't mean to put you on the spot either. Feel like that was maybe a little aggressive of me. You feel free. Oh, I like that. Lacey says I like to use the dance for balance. That's beautiful. But I think that it's really helpful, nuance and prioritization. Yes, I think that's a perfect way to say it too. Like they're really like what matters the most to me. I think for so long I did that live stream on like the girl boss era kind of being dead. like I think for so long, so many of us, especially like in our generation, were just like success at all costs kind of thing, like girl boss it up, you know? And I just feel like so many people are kind of coming back around to like, yeah, no, like I need some kind of like life in the midst of this, and I need to figure out what that looks like for me. And maybe I've swung too far this way and I went too far into the life category and I need to lean a little bit more into the business, or opposite, like maybe I've totally over indexed on the business and I need to come back. But like there was just a lot of conversation around like what does this look like to do in a way that's like actually healthy and sustaining for me. Um and I just think I think like this sounds a little bit bad to say, but I think you guys will know what I mean. Like I think the veil has been lifted, like that veil of like and I personally felt under it too. This is not just even like a this is not like me projecting onto the industry. This is me like including myself in this. Like I think for so long, because it was like this in our industry, we were just like, it's just so fucking easy to be successful. And like it just always will be. Um, and because it was. And now I think we're kind of, our industry is sort of more in this like, oh yeah, this is sort of how business is phase, where it's like, yeah, businesses like take some effort. Businesses like take some level of expertise and problem solving. And if we're going to put in that level of expertise, effort, time, problem solving for the long term, like we have to figure out how to balance this. Where I think for a while people were like, well, if it's that fucking easy, I'll just like race to the finish line and get to the easy part. And now I think it's like, oh, it doesn't work like quite like that. Um, and I think for a lot of us, it was just so easy to get caught up in that. Um, yeah, seasonality, Lauren, that's a great way to say it. 100% seeing clients have to move through lifting of the veil. Yep, yep, yep. Yeah, Sarah said totally. We might have to work a bit. Exactly. Like, which like I think for a lot of us isn't necessarily even bad. Like I didn't get like this vibe of like, oh my God, I don't want to have to work in the applications at all, which like I think is really good because there was such like an entitlement that was present in our industry, I think, for a little while. But I think it's more just like, but what does that look like if that's what it is for me now? Ooh, Kate said the word apocalypse originally meant revelation or unveiling. So I like to think that when it feels like there's a big change, it's usually related to a revealing of what wasn't real or how things have changed. Oh my gosh, Kate, that gave me goosebumps. That's so good. Yes. It's so funny. I was like coaching with a client about this morning. We were talking about like how she was like, oh, I'm thinking about something in this new way. Like, do you think that's right? And I'm like, that it's right because it is what's most true for you. Like when you were thinking about it in this way, it like wasn't even true for you. And so it was confusing you, but like this is what's true for you. And I think that's kind of what you're saying, right? It's like we're just like, this is what's true in business. Like, and when we actually get to say that, it gets easier. Christina said, for me, the combo's been if I'm going to spend my time, then what do I actually enjoy in the marketing piece? That's probably obvious for most, but definitely hasn't been for me. Yes, it's like we're willing to spend the time, but like I need it to not drain me so fucking much that like I don't have any other energy left, right? Like it's this, again, balance, right? Where does all this go in a way that like leaves me walking away feeling good, or at least like tired in the good way instead of like drained in the bad way. Yes, birthing something new. Lucy said, do you think there's still a strong demand for coaching? Or is it that some people are worried about, or is that something people are worried about in the applications? I've like, there's been a decrease in people seeking coaching, which makes sense post-pandemic in the world, but wondering if it's in my small circle or industry-wide feeling. I think that like my personal take and view on it isn't so much that there's like this huge amount less, although like I think probably there's definitely less than 2020. But I think there's just a level of distrust and a lot of what used to be a thing. Like, so seeking coaching, meaning like, oh, I'll just take that course and I believe that that will work and give me everything I need. Like, what I'm seeing is like people are really like looking for more of like high level support or personalization. And again, like I'm in a a bubble in a sense of that, right? But like I even see that when talking with like my clients about their clients and that their niches and all of this stuff, like I feel like people still want to be helped and supported and all of these things. But I think the veil was lifted in that like a course with 5,000 people in it is not help or support in the way that I thought it was going to be. And so I do think the demand for that is lower. Yeah. Thank you, Alyssa. Okay, so next thing is I think people are craving more stability than just massive growth. Like, yes, people want growth. They want to grow. They want to make a lot of money. They want great profit, all of those things. And I'm not like trying to make light of any of that. But I think they like just don't want it to feel like a damn roller coaster ride that they can't get off. Like, there really was like this thread of like, I want a business I can like feel like is stable and I can count on. And I think in a time where like the industry is changing, or like Kate said, we're kind of like building something new. I think that instability can feel really present, which makes people like want to grasp for like, hey, I just want the stable thing. Where like when the industry was feeling more stable, a lot of people were like, hey, I want to quantum leap. Right. Like I don't know that I saw a single word, I don't know that a single person put the words quantum leap in their application, where I feel like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, every other application would have said some version of that. I'm like kidding, but not kidding. Do you know what I'm saying? So, and I just think that's interesting because I feel like for so many people, there was like this time in our space where they were like, well, if I can't say that I'm making 100K months, like nobody wants to hire me or crazy shit like that. And I think like we're coming around to like people actually just want like real support, and they want like results they can trust and count on. And if you're someone that can help them get that, like you can grow. Like we're kind of over, I think, a lot of this really performative, here are my straight screenshots kind of thing. And we're really invested in like who's living how I want to live, who's doing things in a way that I respect, who seems like they have this level of stability. And again, I think it's really important to say, like, keep in mind, these are all people that were attracted to working with me. And I talk a lot about these things. So I'm kind of giving you a data bubble in a sense, right? But equally, like, this is the information I have. Like, it's still relevant and valuable, but like, keep context of the fact that like someone else might get 77 applications that say somewhat different things. But overall, again, I do think this is a trend where people are like, I want yes, I want the things, but I want them in a way that like feels really good and that doesn't feel like this all the time. Like I don't want the 100K month if I'm crashing out the next month. And I don't think our industry had that awareness not all that long ago. Like I really think there's like a maturity that I'm noticing in some of this, where it's like what Sarah was saying earlier, like we might have to work a bit. We might have to treat our businesses like a real business. Like it might be better if I have some level of stability than like this constant, up and down. Like I think there is like a maturity that's coming to like this industry and these desires that ground it a little bit more, which I think is really interesting. Um, do you think who's living how I want to live is true for only coaches, or would that apply to done for you also? I think done for you also, to be honest, but maybe less so in the exact like living way, but I think very much in the like values way. But like I think nobody wants to look at like their done for you provider as somebody who's like, not stable, or like feels like they're on a roller coaster, or is always like doing this like sprint and then dipping out or whatever. Like, I think we watch those things for like who we believe that person is and how they show up and what they value. So, yes, I think mostly that, yes. I mean, I think obviously, like, I think there's nuances to it with like a coach. They might want to know like how much revenue are you making, or something with done for you. Maybe they care less about that. But you know what I mean? Like I think there's this like energy and value and like way that you operate in the world that they want to feel like connected to and aligned to. Yeah, Megan said my clients don't know much about my lifestyle. It's more about values. Yeah, 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 totally. And I think like they can watch like how you show up. Um, Yeah, Julia said, I want to know my done for you peeps love what they're doing, are consistent and steady. Exactly. Right. Like, I don't think we have to be like, did you buy a Chanel bag this weekend or any like shit like that that we don't care about? But I definitely think we want to be like, oh, like she just like seems like she has her shit together. Like she seems like she's really happy and content in what she's doing or whatever. Like I think we want that. Um, all right, another thing is I think people are getting really like deeply in question around like what do I do to scale past a certain point. I think so many people are over that idea that the only way to scale is like large scale courses. And they're wanting to think outside the box a lot more. There was a lot of like inquiry around that for people around like, okay, I'm at this level. Like, I want to start thinking outside the box of what it looks like to get to the next one because I don't want to just have to do it this one way. And I actually think that's so cool and so good for our industry. Like, I went through this phase. When was it? It was probably like 2018, 2019, where like all I talked about for a while was innovation. I talked about like blue ocean theory all the time. I was like so like hyper fixated on this like innovation track because I saw how much it did for my business when I did revenue share and like set myself apart in that way. Um, but like honestly, nobody really got on that track with me, which is why I kind of got off because everybody was like, oh cute, he's talking about blue ocean theory again, but it was like not what people are most interested in. Um, but I think there is this like, probably not the way I was talking about it, but there is this like kind of wave coming back of people not just like, I didn't see a lot of like, just tell me what to do and I'll do it kind of stuff, which like, is pretty normal for that to come up in a lot in applications. I saw a lot more of like, I want to figure out how I can do this in a way that makes sense for like me and my clients. Like I want to be creative about this. I want to not feel boxed in and like this is the one way I should have to do it. And so I actually thought that was really cool and I think could be really good for our industry of like, let's get creative again. Let's like start having fun with this shit again. Like what is like a fun way you'd like to serve your clients? Or like if you didn't just have to like whatever put your expertise into 5 modules, like what might you do with it? Like let's ask that question. And I felt like people were like really engaged in thinking about that, which I think is really exciting and cool. And I think if you're someone who can help them solve that problem or has a business to help solve that problem, like you're going to have a really like interested audience this year because I think a lot of people, there was this thing before where it was just like the known was so good. Like, oh, I just know I have to then like make a course and it has to be a signature offer and it has to this and da da da. And I mean, obviously there's some level of like stability in that, but I think like now that's not the craving, right? It's more like, how can I do this in a way that like I want to, or that I actually think is going to get people results, or that actually feels like exciting to deliver on. So I really feel like there's like more conversation and like you know, an opening of the market in that way, both in terms of like people that can help with that, but also just in terms of like watching people do that of like, what are the ways we're willing to like get creative about this again? Um, I also think one of the things, and again, I talk about this a lot, so like I'm sure this is why it showed up in a lot of applications, but I do think it's relevant. Um, Kate said, I think more than ever, I notice in myself that people want to know how to think more than what to think. At least I do. I totally agree with that. Um, and I think that could be exciting for a lot of us. Like, I know for me, that's exciting. Like, I much more love teaching about like how to think about something than like what I think someone is supposed to think. And so, if we're moving in that direction, like, I think for a lot of people from a thought leadership perspective, that actually can be really good and exciting. Um, but the thing I was saying that obviously I talk about a lot, but I just saw a lot throughout applications is like people want demand. Like this is a metric that people really want because it kind of ties everything together, right? It means you're nailing messaging. It means you have visibility. It means you have stability in your business if you have demand. Like demand sort of is the like overarching factor of a lot of that. And I think people are really starting to see how important that is, where again, in the past, I feel like people would kind of just be saying, like, I want growth, I want growth, I want growth, I want more, I want more. And I think that that shift was more like, I want demand. Like, I want people to want my shit. I want them to be like waiting for it, lining up for it. Like, I want the stability of that. I want the certainty of that. I want to like the kind of like confirmation loop to know I'm doing the right thing that gives me that. So felt like that was really important to note too, because I think there's like a way that that can make marketing more clear where people don't just want whatever visibility. They want visibility that comes with demand, or they don't just want the sales pipeline. They want like demand for that sales pipeline. So I think there's like some things to think about, especially if you're, like speaking to business owners that relate to that. But I also think it's really helpful because I actually feel like that's an important thing for people to be paying attention to. Again, like I think there was alignment there. Like I feel like for so long, people have been just like off on like, okay, I need like whoever said it earlier, like just chasing virality, or I think Elisa said it. When really like what you want is demand. Like what you want is people that are like, I want your shit, you know? Yeah, Christina said visibility without demand is just noise if your goal is income. Right. And it's not that it's not ever fun to play with that or have visibility, right? Like I think that like I have personally had fun with that throughout my business journey. Here and there and stuff. But like I think that we want to see it for what it is. And we want to really choose the metric that gives us what we want. And so if what we want is visibility, knowing we are nailing our messaging, a consistent way to grow our income, stability, to not be on a roller coaster, like demand is pretty much the metric that facilitates most of that. So I think that was interesting. That's like a huge craving. And I just think people are going to be doubling down on that. Again, I think that sort of takes me back to that little series example that I gave at the beginning, which is like that is for demand creation, right? That's for somebody to be like, I have to work with Lacey because she gets this in a way other people don't, right? Excuse me. It's not for visibility for the sake of it. It's not for how many people can I reach with this. It's for what would help me create more interest and demand. Oh yeah, I'm going to stand out on this topic that I don't see people talking about as much. I'm going to position myself as more of an authority or expert, or, having a personal experience with this topic, that kind of thing. And so I think that we have to like rework our brains a lot on some of this stuff to be like, well, where is the intersection that brings me demand? And where people get confused is like, it probably won't also be the thing that like hits every other metric. Like it's not going to be the thing I get the most engagement on. You know what I mean? So I just think it's interesting to think about that and like really to get clear on like what matters to you in your business, which kind of leads me to the next point. Um, is that I think a lot of people were really naming not feeling as comfortable with their numbers as they want to. And again, I'm a coach who talks about data. It makes sense that people are coming to me asking about data, like take it for what it's worth. But I feel like as we're getting back to the like, oh yeah, we have to treat our businesses like businesses. We're actually running businesses. We're kind of maturing, da da da. There is this deeper craving that I'm seeing to like really understand what's happening in your business. Like what numbers should I be looking at? What do they mean? I actually did a group coaching call on Friday for people that applied but didn't get picked. We did like a live group coaching call on Friday, and there was quite a few data questions on that too. Like somebody asked me like, what are the three most overlooked data points? And I was like, damn, that was such a good question. Like I really, of all the time I've been doing data, nobody's ever asked me that question. Even when I had fucking Dateable as a business, nobody ever asked me that question. And I just feel like we're really coming around to a point where people are caring about that stuff again. And I think that can be really positive. Um, to be like, oh, I see that I have a gap here and I really want to solve it. Like, how can I get, and it wasn't just like a what number should I know, but it was almost this like re-engagement of getting comfortable as a CEO with numbers. And I thought that was really important to name too. I feel like our industry always pendulums, you know what I mean? Like And there was such a big pendulum, I think, to like everything about like feminine business. And I think that it got so contorted into this, like, it means you would never look at strategy or numbers and like, oh, that would just take you out of your feminine energy or whatever the fuck. And so I feel like not only was there sort of this, like, you shouldn't have to do this, but there was also like this, and it would be bad if you did almost kind of messaging that was coming from different spaces in our industry. And I think that there is sort of this like resurgence of like, wait, it might be really helpful for me to look at my numbers. That doesn't mean I can't be like feminine or in flow or whatever, but like it would, part of that would lead to the stability I'm after, part of that would lead to the growth I'm after, part of that would lead to the demand I am seeking. What would it look like to get comfortable in that again? And so I think there's like mindset stuff there. And I think there's definitely just like, what are the numbers that we need to be looking at? But I do feel like that's going to come around this year as like an important thing people are wanting to really like look at and understand more and more, because with that comes neutrality and comes empowerment. Like when the thing, I had a client call like this morning, she was like, hey, here's what's happening in my launch, da, 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 and like kind of like threw out a lot of stuff. And I was like, hey, I want to process all that mindset stuff with you, but like I actually want to know what's happening like from a neutral perspective before we do any of that. Because we know some of this is your shit. You're just like laying over and making meaning about. And so it was like, okay, let's get neutral first, and then we can process like what's real and true and what's not. And so I think like we're just kind of getting back to a place where like that's how we have to run a business. Like we're running businesses, you know? Um, another, um, okay, there's two more things I want to talk about. One is a lot of people were naming like a lack of a totally clear client journey. And what I think the problem was for a lot of people, from like what I have seen and can gather, not everyone, obviously, I'm making generalizations, but is that a lot of people have not increased their tolerance for a longer client journey, which means they're just doing random things instead of realizing they could extend their client journey, right? So what I mean by that is, I think that whole notion of like someone comes onto my list, I sell them something, they either buy or they don't buy, and we move on. Like that's not the game we're playing anymore, um, unfortunately. And I think we all need to be an acknowledgement of that. Like one thing I track with a lot of clients is like time on list to purchase. And like it's just getting longer, right? It just is. Like we know trust is low, all of that stuff. Like people need a longer window a lot of times. But then I think what happens to people is they keep trying to throw out, again, back to that like offer thing. They're like, oh, will this new offer make them buy faster? Will this random product make them da da da? And so what people are kind of left with is this really disjointed client uh, journey, instead of this sort of like really streamlined, like trust building journey. And so I do think that's something that people are going to be working on a lot this year, is like, what does it look like? And again, back to that simplicity piece, like, what does it look like to go back to simplifying client journeys and being okay and having sort of like, tolerance for a longer client journey. Yeah, Sarah says knowing the time to buy has helped so much. Good to see you, Sarah. Yes, totally. Like it really, if you're like, oh, on average, people take 100 days to buy from me. Okay, like, cool. What journey do I need to take them through to get there? Instead of fighting that fight all the time and being like, will this make them buy at 50 days? Will this, like it can get so chaotic in your business and so far from streamlined if you go down that road. And so we have to have more tolerance for the like longer client journey. And I think we have to go back to like simplifying and streamlining that, because that also takes me back to the data. Like that's when data gets easier. Like a lot of the reason people are having trouble like looking at their numbers and understanding their numbers is because of how chaotic like the different structures and offers and things like that are. So feel like we're going to see that. Like we need to start talking about client journey again. We need to look at like, what is that trajectory? How long does it take them? How are we warming them up? How are we building that deeper connection? Like if we know people are craving a deeper connection with us, how do we build that in here instead of like fighting against it so hard, by like throwing out random stuff? Like, we don't need to fight that fight. We need to like get on board with it and like make our business work for that. Um, so I think we definitely need that like increased tolerance, but we also need a process that supports that. And then the last thing I'll say is I really feel like a lot of people are severely underutilizing their team, both the team they have and in the team they could have. Um, I think people are very confused on this front. Like, who should be doing what? Who should I have? What should it make sense? Like, I think all of team stuff is um confusing to people. Let's see. Jess said, yes, I've seen like over monetization with clients trying to convert at every possible touch point instead of building desire to the one thing that really matters. Perfectly said, Jess. I think that's so true. It's like it's like when we're craving that stability, I think we do stuff like that. We're like, okay, can I convert them everywhere? Because we like want to see it working, or we want some like feedback loop there instead of being like, no, it's fine if we wait 100 days as long as I get this thing at the end. But yes, I agree with you. But like, so I'll give some examples with the team. Like, some of it was like, wow, this person feels massively under supported for the level of team they're saying they have. What's going on there? Like, some of the challenges they're writing is how like overwhelmed they feel or how much lack of support they feel. But then equally when they're telling me about how many people they have on their team, I'm like, wait, how is that working together? Like, you should be feeling quite supported. So I think that's one way it's showing up. Or the other way is they have massive goals and they're really trying to scale, and they're like, but I only have one like part-time VA that helps me sometimes. And I'm like, well, that's really more the bottleneck than any of this other stuff you're naming, because like you just don't like have the physical manpower to do like some of the things you want to do. So I think that like, those can be opposite ends of the spectrum and there's a lot in between, but I really feel like we've moved away as an industry from like how important the people that help us grow are. I feel like there's really some like huge glamorization of like being self-made, and like people that like don't even talk about their team, or where it almost feels like you shouldn't have to have team to grow or whatever. And I just really believe that like you don't need a big team. You don't need like a ton of team. Like I think a lot of people really have a desire to not have a big team, but I think like if you're gonna have one, you sure as shit better feel supported. And if you don't want to have one, like you have to be really, really conscientious about like what are the things you're trying to accomplish without that, and or like what do you need to accomplish the things you want to accomplish. But I think there is just this sort of like reworking again on like treating our business as like a business that needs to happen around like what that looks like from a team perspective, from what you're paying, from what it makes sense profit wise, all that kind of stuff. So I think that was another big takeaway I had, is that like I want to start talking about that more again. I feel like when Megan was here, Megan and I used to do live streams once a month, maybe every other month. I can't remember. Where we talked about team stuff. And I feel like we really have gotten away from that. And I think I just haven't seen that conversation in the industry as much anymore either. And I definitely think we're in a place of like wanting to bring that back. I think what I found interesting about that is I feel like in almost everyone's brain since like, ChatGPT came out, it was almost like, oh, what task can I have AI do so I don't have to worry about team as much? And I think there's definitely something to be said for like, how do we use the tools and resources at our disposal, for sure. But I also think like we're kind of getting back to that place of like, I still need really good people. Like, what does that look like? Um, Julie said, yes, bring back COO lives. I love those. Taylor, we beat you. She's gonna see this and be like, hey, so do you need me to do that? Because she's amazing and would. Kate said, yeah, it felt like there was a big correction from have a massive team and scale instantly to I cut my whole team and I do it all myself and people overstretched. Yes, it's like always these pendulum swings and corrections, right? And like usually we want to be somewhere in the middle. Like we don't need this massive team that we're totally overpaying that's under supporting us, but also like we probably need something other than just AI if we like really want to do this well. So I think we'll see, hopefully, like some means of correction around that where it's like, yes, ChatGPT or AI is a tool like anything else. Let's absolutely put that into our process. Like we certainly have um at a lit up life, like added that into some of our processes, but that still is not yet at a level that replaces like really, really, really good team support. So I think we need like to find our middle ground and a lot of that again. So themes are like simplification, individuation, like, and just like treating our businesses like businesses again. I really feel like was such a big one. Like, we're kind of, lifting the veil. We're past that like very delusional, like I can just like snap my fingers and it happens kind of thing. But like, we also don't want to go the other way. Like, we don't want to go to like, and so none of this works. You know what I mean? Um, it does. It's just like we're running businesses. Like, how do we get back to that? Um, Rachel said along this line, I keep thinking about your post the other day where you talked about what we are holding, how much I actually fulfill as a solo entrepreneur, and how can a team member help me leverage that? That's what I'm thinking about now. Yes, exactly. Like a lot of where people burn out in business, it's not just because of like what they're physically doing, it's because of how much their brain is holding, right? And I think when we have team that like massively participates in the holding, it gets so much easier. Like that was one of the big pieces of feedback I got from my event. Like people were like, you leaned on Taylor. Like we watched you be like, I don't know, Taylor, what's the answer to that? Or like, hey, Taylor, can you figure that out? Or like people really saw how much she was like holding for that event alongside me. And I feel like we're like, oh shit, we forget that we can like have other humans hold this with us. I know I forget that sometimes as like a high achiever and over functioner. Like I have to remind myself of that. Taylor's also amazing because she'll like remind me of that too. But I definitely think that's like a huge piece of it is like we want to see like what it looks like to truly have other people hold things for us. Um, yeah, Jess, that's so funny. You're so right. There used to be like a you're only cool if you have a giant team and a physical headquarters vibe a while ago. That's so true. I so remember that time where people were like moving to wanting physical offices and then everybody pushed back on that so big. And then it was like basically like don't have any team. Yeah. Like it's all a pendulum and we can get so caught up in it or we can just be like, simplify. Like, what do I want? If you really, really want a big team, like go for it. If you really, really don't, okay too. But like, what the fuck do you want? Like we have to like get less and less caught up in these trends. And I think that's what a lot of this shift in our industry has showed us that like just doing something for the sake of doing it or because other people are doing it does not create a sustainable functioning business. It creates a lot of fucking chaos because you're always chasing the next thing. And like, we just got to get past that. Right. So I hope this helps. I'm sure there are a million other things I could go into. If like Lucy, you have other questions, like I am always available for live stream requests. These just, come out of my head. So by all means, certainly not, it's certainly not unhelpful to have somebody else saying that with me. And this one came from somebody giving me this idea too. So if you have other things on this that you were like, oh, but I wanted to know if that was in applications, or I'd love to hear you talk about that, I'm down. Let me know. I love doing these. I love being here with y'all. I hope you guys have a beautiful week and I'll see y'all next week. Bye guys.